Asians commit crimes. I mean, they do, but not nearly as much as any other ethnic group, in America or around the world. And it's not just a stereotype, but a statistical fact that shows up everywhere you look. From Tokyo to Toronto, New York to San Francisco, Asian communities consistently rank as the safest. And I'm not talking about small differences here either. Their crime rates are often a fraction of other groups. If you look closely at statistics at all, you routinely see those numbers. And at first the answer seems pretty clear, because so many people tell us that poverty equals crime and Asians do better financially. But as it turns out, that's really not true. And it's not like they're just naturally peaceful people either. Even a brief look at the Pacific Theater in World War II will sober up anyone. The same culture that gives us today's ultra-safe neighborhoods once produced some of history's most brutal regimes. So what's going on? I'm Ken LaCorte. I dig into uncomfortable topics to find real answers, not just comfortable myths. The elephant in the room is this: what makes Asians so incredibly law-abiding in normal times? And what makes them absolute terrors during wartime? In the next few minutes, you'll learn some fascinating truths about culture, crime, and human nature that challenge everything you may think about what you know that makes communities safe or dangerous. We'll look at Asian crime numbers, including the broken link between poverty and crime. We'll investigate how Asian family and culture helps prevent crime, and we'll look at Asian countries during wartime when those social structures turned ugly. There's a lot we can learn from all of this. So let's start with the United States, because the numbers here are striking. Now, comparing crime rates by ethnicity makes some people queasy, but ignoring them just isn't an answer to anything. When you look at crime rates on a per capita basis in the United States, you almost always see the same pattern. At the top are Native Americans and Black Americans, Hispanics, whites, Asians. Looking at the raw numbers for Asians is eye-opening. They make up about 7% of the US population, but only 1.3% of the total arrests, only 1% of murderers, 1.7% of rapes, 1% of robberies. There's only one category of crime where Asians are actually overrepresented: gambling. They apparently commit 11% of America's gambling crimes. Go figure. And where there are concentrations of Asians in American cities, you can sometimes visually see differences. Look, I live in San Francisco, and it's often obvious. Some of this city is a dystopian nightmare. But when you go through heavily Asian neighborhoods like the Richmond District, they're like another world. I mean, they're not really wealthier, but you don't see nearly as many city problems like graffiti, trash everywhere, people peeing on the sidewalk, or bars covering all the windows. It's a palpable feeling. But it's not just in America or some quirk of immigration patterns. When we look across the Pacific, the numbers are even more dramatic. Now, most of the world is Asian, almost 60% of the Earth's total population, so we're looking at a lot of countries and billions of people. But in general, crime rates in Asian countries are just incredibly low. And the region that stands out by far the most is East Asia: Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and China. Japan has a murder rate of 0.23 per 100,000 people. It's lower than Western Europe. It's 10 times lower than Canada. The United States? It's 30 times higher than Japan for murders. The results show up in ways that seem sometimes unbelievable to Westerners. In Tokyo, you'll see little kids riding the subway, going alone to school. People leave their cell phones on empty tables to reserve their seats. In a study comparing dropped phones and wallets in New York and Tokyo, 88% of phones dropped by the researchers were handed into the police by Tokyo residents. Just 6% in New York. For wallets, 80% of Tokyo wallets made their way back. It was just 10% in New York. Okay, so we'll get into the whys, but let's start with a why not. I mentioned it earlier, but pretty much everyone knows that poverty causes crime. It's like criminology 101, because it seemingly makes sense. When you're desperate for money, you're more likely to steal, rob, or worse. Except it's just not true. And Asian crime rates blow this theory apart. In New York City, with lots of immigrants, the percentage of Latino, Blacks, and Asians living below the poverty line, they're all hovering around 24%, while the percentage of whites living in poverty is about 13%. But the Asian crime rates, they're not in the same league as Latinos or Blacks. They're some of the safest areas of the city. The same holds true in San Francisco, which has more Asians living beneath the poverty level than any other group. But while Asians make up over a third of the city, they count for 4.4% of arrests. Now, let me make a point. Arrests aren't always the best metric to look at in crime, because some neighborhoods have a lot more cops in them and they make a lot more arrests. But these numbers for Asians hold true across the board. Arrests, reported victimization rates, murder stats, you name it. Asian poverty doesn't translate into Asian crime, in America or in Asia. And when you think about it, Most violent crimes aren't motivated by money. I mean, sometimes, but most violence is over an argument or a domestic situation. In fact, most murder victims actually know their killer. We've spent lifetimes and billions of dollars fighting crime by fighting poverty. But Asian communities show a different path. It holds for education levels too. Even when Asians don't finish school, they still stay out of trouble a lot more than anyone else. Now, I don't want to act as though money and education don't play a role in crime, because there are clearly correlations between the two. But the more you look at Asian communities, the harder it is to ignore how family and culture affect everything. Let's start with the obvious: family. Asian Americans have the highest rate of two-parent households of any group in America. About 80% of Asian kids live with both parents. The national average? About 63%. And kids born to single Asian moms? Only 15% compared to 40% nationally. Two parents means a lot of things. More supervision, more stability, and usually more income. When mom and dad are both watching, it's harder for kids to get into trouble. And Asian parents, well, they're famous for keeping tabs on their kids. I mean, we joke about tiger moms, but that kind of attention keeps kids focused. And it goes way deeper than just having two parents at home. In most Asian households, there's something that sounds outdated to American ears. There's a strict hierarchy. Parents aren't trying to be their kids' best friends. They're there to guide, discipline, and set expectations. And those expectations, they set them high. Education isn't just encouraged, it's like a religion. Other kids are hanging out at the mall, and Asian kids are often at after-school programs, tutoring sessions, or music lessons. And then there's the concept of shame, a massive factor that Westerners just don't fully understand. In Asian cultures, if you screw up, you're not just shaming yourself, you're shaming your entire family. Your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors. That's a heavy weight to carry.
Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow.
Stop.
In Asian cultures, particularly those influenced by Confucian thought, public shame isn't just embarrassing, it's devastating. Japan's justice system literally banks on it. The country has a crazy high conviction rate, like 99+%. And that's partly because suspects often confess under the pressure of social stigma. The concept of shame is tightly intertwined with the concept of face, dignity, and reputation. Losing face isn't just embarrassing, it's a cultural wound. If an Asian kid gets arrested, it's not just gossip. It can affect the family's standing in the community for years. Business relationships might suffer. Marriage prospects for siblings could be damaged. The stakes are really real. You'll see Japanese executives bowing on TV, apologizing for corporate mistakes. Or Korean politicians resigning over minor scandals that Western politicians would totally brush off. A Western CEO caught in a scandal might lose their job, but an Asian CEO might become permanently unemployable, and it might affect their kids' careers as well. Okay, speaking of shame, if I make any real mistakes here, let me know and I'll address it in a pinned comment below. And I will be deeply, deeply sorry. Okay, so there's also what I call future focus. While some kids are looking for quick money or street respect, Asian families are typically playing the long game. Study hard, get into a good college, land a solid career. There's intense pressure to succeed, and on that upward trajectory, they know they have something to lose. It's a lot less tempting to, experiment with drugs if getting arrested for that ruins your chances to get into a top school. And having something to lose isn't just for kids. The more you're invested in playing by society's rules, the less likely you'll risk it all through screwing up. Someone with a home and a career just has more to protect than a drifter with nothing to lose. And that generally gets you to buy into society's moral code, which is more than just fearing punishment. If you truly believe stealing is wrong, you probably won't do it, even if you could get away with it. And when this bond weakens, criminals justify behaviors with excuses like, well, the store has insurance, or he had it coming. Another crucial thing to mention is stronger communities. Asian neighborhoods, both in the United States and abroad, they tend to have tighter social networks, like microsocieties with layers of informal policing. Shop owners, temple congregations, and community groups, they know each other. Gossip travels fast, and it's an informal surveillance system that kind of stops problems before they start. And there's something else that's related to all this, but a little different, and it's just respect for authority. Not just parents, but teachers, coaches, law enforcement. In most Asian cultures, challenging authority isn't really seen as brave or independent like it may be here. It's seen as disruptive and shameful. And that translates into extremely low rates of confrontations with police. Now, you can look at this and say, maybe it's too rigid, too controlling, and that might be true. But a lot of good certainly comes from it. But also, not all of it's good. There's a twist that few people talk about. These same cultural traits that keep crime low in peaceful times, well, during wartime, they can completely go bad. All that respect for authority, group loyalty, and sacrifice for the greater good, In the wrong hands, it can go dark fast. And those same societies that produce near zero crime rates in peacetime unleash some of history's nastiest war behavior. Rewind to 1937. There was an Asian Holocaust that we often don't hear about. The Japanese army murdered tens of millions of their civilian neighbors. In the Nanjing Massacre, Japanese troops killed over 300,000 Chinese civilians in just 6 weeks. They mass-produced rape centers and treated their prisoners of war worse than any country in modern times. Torture, starvation. They killed about a third of Allied POWs, compared to about 4% of POWs who died in Nazi captivity. And if you ever want to check out a dark place, research Unit 731, where unimaginable experiments were done on other human beings. And it's not unique to Japan. Look at Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge, where normal people were turned into mass killers. Or North Korea, where obedience props up a brutal regime. Or China today and the Uyghur genocide. How does a society flip like that? Well, it's the very cultural traits that usually prevent crime: group loyalty, respect for authority, collective responsibility. They get weaponized. Propaganda frames their enemies as subhuman, and social conformity turns ugly. Soldiers who might have balked at killing civilians went along with it because the group was doing it. Officers who had once taught their men to be honorable now ordered massacres. The same shame-based culture that prevented crimes prevented soldiers from objecting to atrocities. But here's something fascinating. Once the crisis ends, those societies snap back to their peaceful norms almost instantly. Japan went from the brutality of World War II to one of the world's safest places in a single generation. It's like flipping a switch from Jekyll to Hyde and back again. It's a sobering reminder that there are cultural forces that make societies so peaceful, and those same forces can do the exact opposite. So look, you probably know as much as I do about this, and I'm interested in any of your thoughts on it, so comment below. And if you want to learn some more about what I was talking about in World War II, I dug into why the United States dropped not 1, but 2 nuclear bombs on Japan within a few days. The modern narrative is that it was all about scaring